For just a moment, the monster looked human. Under the dazzling lights of the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas on May 4, 2025, something happened that no one in the crowd, nor anyone watching from around the world, expected to see. Naoya Inoue, the undefeated, undisputed king of the super bantamweight division, was sent crashing to the canvas. In that split second, the illusion of invincibility cracked. But the story that unfolded next became one of the most unforgettable chapters in modern boxing. By the time Inoue entered the ring that night, his reputation had grown to mythical proportions. He wasn't just a champion, he was a standard. An apex predator who made world-class fighters look like weekend warriors. His name carried weight not only because of his flawless record, but also because of the ease with which he carved through divisions, making once formidable men look helpless. Analysts often ran out of adjectives for him: fast, precise, ruthless, and brilliant. But most of all, inevitable. When it was announced that Inoue would defend his titles against Ramon Cardenas, the reaction from the boxing world was tepid at best. Many dismissed Cardenas as little more than a showcase opponent, an unbeaten but largely unproven fighter whose resume didn't scream danger. A solid contender, yes, but not the man to shake the foundations of the Inoue empire. He was expected to show up, survive a few rounds, and eventually fall like the rest. But Cardenas didn't read the script. From the opening bell, Inoue was unmistakably himself. The poise, the footwork, the surgical jab, it was all there. He glided around the ring with that familiar confidence, measuring his opponent, firing off sharp punches with frightening speed. Cardenas, to his credit, didn't cower. He didn't come to be another statistic or a victim of boxing royalty. He stood his ground, moved with purpose, and matched the energy with intensity of his OWNT. Wasn't that Cardenas was winning the first round, but he wasn't losing badly either. He was reading, adjusting, and learning. And more importantly, he wasn't getting bullied. He absorbed what Inoue gave him, maneuvered intelligently, and slowly started closing the distance. The crowd, expecting a blowout, started leaning in. Something wasn't quite going according to plan. Then came round 2, the moment that changed everything. Inoue, having tested the waters, began to open up. He threw with greater authority, planting his feet and digging to the body with left hooks and sneaky uppercuts. It was the kind of sustained offense that usually breaks a man's rhythm. But Cardenas stayed calm. He slipped just enough to avoid the full impact, and then came his answer, a left hook, perfectly timed and devastatingly clean. It caught Inoue flush. The kind of shot that halts time for just a moment. And then the unthinkable happened. The monster fell. Inoue, dropped to the canvas for just the second time in his career, stared up with the same composure he always had, but the damage had been done. Cardenas had landed the punch every fighter dreams of throwing. The arena gasped. Pundits scrambled to adjust their narratives. For the first time in years, Naoya Inoue looked human, vulnerable, beatable. But greatness isn't about never falling. It's about what happens next. Inoue rose with icy calm, shook off the impact, and resumed the fight as if nothing had happened. But internally, something had shifted. The third round didn't just begin, it boiled. Inoue came out with intent. This wasn't just a response, it was retaliation. Not in the form of wild swings or reckless aggression, but in the cold, calculated fury of a master technician determined to restore the natural order. Cardenas, emboldened by his knockdown, didn't back away. He came forward, trading leather, letting his hands go. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was pressing. And for a while, the exchanges were brutally even. Inoue had to dig deep, deeper than he's been pushed in years. He adjusted mid-round, refining his angles, landing to the body with authority, and chipping away at Cardenas' gas tank with every punishing blow. By the fourth, the cumulative effect began to show. Cardenas still had fire, but it was now tempered with pain. His face bore the swelling of war, and his breath came harder. He was still swinging, still brave, but more and more he found himself on the retreat. Inoue had flipped the momentum and was beginning to grind his opponent down. There was no panic in the Japanese fighter, just a meticulous, surgical unraveling of his target. Cardenas had his moments. A right hand here, a body shot there. His punches weren't just hopeful, they were technically sound and brave. But Inoue had entered a different mode. Every jab snapped with authority. Every feint drew a reaction. He was in full control now, walking Cardenas into traps, forcing him to respond to problems he couldn't solve quickly enough. The fifth round painted a clearer picture. Cardenas, while still firing back, started showing the first signs of desperation. His punches were wider, his movement more predictable. Inoue noticed and punished. Short counters found their mark. The gaps in Cardenas' defense widened. Still, he wouldn't back down. Still, he fought by the sixth. Cardenas' legs were slower. His arms dropped just a little more between combinations. His jaw was still set with grit, but his body was no longer keeping pace. He was trying to catch lightning in a bottle a second time, hoping to find the opening that shocked the world in round 2. But Inoue had already downloaded the data, made the adjustments, and now began enforcing the endgame. Body shots began folding Cardenas forward. Rights over the top snapped his head. He tried to exchange, but found fewer windows. Inoue remained in front of him, always poised, always sharp, delivering calculated violence with chilling precision. The gap in class was widening now. Cardenas wasn't just in a fight. He was in a test of survival. Round 7 felt like a final exam. Cardenas, still too proud to fold, was absorbing tremendous punishment. His arms no longer lifted fast enough. His torso flinched with each blow. His corner began to look on with concern. But the man kept pressing, kept believing. Even as his body betrayed him, his heart refused to yield. And then came round 8. Inoue, sensing the end, tightened his attack. He cornered Cardenas with ruthless geometry, cutting off space, pressing him against the ropes, and letting loose a series of brutal pinpoint combinations. A clean right hand found the jaw, and Cardenas collapsed. A perfect shot, delivered with the poise of a man who had seen the end coming before anyone else. Cardenas rose again, because warriors don't quit, but the signs were clear. His legs weren't right. His breathing was heavy. His reflexes dulled. Still, he dared Inoue to bring more. And so, the monster obliged. Inoue didn't rush. He dismantled. Uppercuts to the chin. Hooks to the liver. Jabs that snapped the head. It was clinical. Ruthless. Beautiful. Cardenas did what he could. He threw back, tried to pivot, and tried to survive. But his body was no longer obeying the commands of his spirit. Finally, a savage uppercut snapped his head back, and the referee made the only humane decision possible. He stepped in. The war was over. The crowd erupted, not just in awe of Inoue's brilliance, but in honor of Cardenas' valor. It wasn't just a knockout, it was a reckoning. Inoue had been dropped, tested, and forced to confront danger in its rawest form. And he responded with greatness. Not the kind that is manufactured with hype, but the kind that is proven under pressure. The kind that reveals itself not when you dominate, but when you're pushed to the edge and have to claw your way back. Cardenas, though defeated, left the ring with his stock higher than ever. He entered as an underdog, perhaps even as a name on a promotional poster. But he left as a man who earned respect the hard way. He dropped the monster. He bled for every second. He reminded us all that even when you lose on paper, you can win in the hearts of fans. Inoue, meanwhile, now heads into a clash with Murajan Akhmadaliyev, an even more dangerous opponent, with his mystique slightly altered but his legend even stronger. Because now, he isn't just the man who dominates. He's the man who overcomes. What we witnessed that night wasn't just a fight, it was an emotional epic. A story of strength, of pride, of resistance, of adaptation. Two men walked into the ring, one to defend a legacy, the other to carve one. And in the end, both did. There are fights you forget by the next weekend. This wasn't one of them. This was one that burned itself into the memory of everyone who watched. Because it reminded us of boxing's essential truth: even the best get hit. Even the greats get tested. And sometimes, when the gods bleed, we fall in love with the sport all over again. Inoue proved he was more than a myth. He proved he was a man. A man with greatness that stretches beyond his fists. And Cardenas, in his own way, etched his name in the annals of modern boxing, because sometimes the most powerful statement isn't who wins, but how you fight when the world expects you to fall.